live from deep in the mountains of the Missouri Ozarks. On Wednesday, the 25th day of September, year of our Lord 2019, and welcome to the John Moore Show. We begin our shows with something that would drive the City Council of Oakland, California out of their minds if they had to do it at the opening of their City Council meetings in Oakland, California. That would be the Pledge of Allegiance, which here in Crawford County, when the County Commission begins their meetings, they begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Here it is. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Perfect tip of the day, I want to encourage all of you to inventory your first aid supplies. Make sure you've got twice what you think you might need. During some kind of injury, or if more than one person's injured, you'll go through those supplies, bandages and things like that, very, very quickly. So that's a very smart thing to do, is to double up on those first aid supplies. The things that would be very difficult to get during a crisis, by the way, and would make excellent barter material. A little bit better than ammunition because it won't come back at you. We're going to have open lines this first hour. Hour two, we'll have my friend Jeff Nyquist with us. I was just looking at the section on my website, Open Source Intelligence, updated as of today. A friend of mine, he's a former counterintelligence agent, got a PhD, very bright guy. He's now retired. This is one of his passions. When I first contacted him, I was on his short list of maybe 20 or 25 people who were getting his daily updates. And I said, I can get this in front of tens of thousands of people through my website. Why don't we do that? And he said, sure, let's go ahead and do that. So he puts this together pretty much 7 days a week. And it's a lot of work to find these dozens of articles from all over the world, mainstream, what we call open source intelligence, and get them posted is a lot of work. But he does it. He does it because he thinks it's the right thing to do. And if you want to stay up to date on what's going on around the planet, this is a great place to do it right here at my website at thelibertyman.com. We'll take your questions, calls, and comments here at Republic Broadcasting at 800-313-9443. We're coming near the end of the fundraiser for Republic Broadcasting involving FrontSight. It's well known that there's more farms in this country than there are people. There's millions of men and women who own deer rifles, for example. I would say it's a fair statement that maybe 1 or 2%, 2% is probably pretty optimistic, of those rifle owners. If you ask them, what's the minute of angle accuracy of your deer rifle, they would look at you like you've got two heads, not having a clue what you're talking about when you ask them what the minute of angle accuracy of the deer rifle is. This is a foundational bit of knowledge that men and women who own rifles and expect to perform with them to defend innocent life, to defend property, something other than shooting a deer. It's foundational knowledge that is not optional, in my opinion. Knowledge that you can get at FrontSight from experienced instructors. My friend Sam Andrews offers similar training at a very high level also at Freedom Center USA. But if you can work it into your schedule to get the FrontSight and participate in this fundraiser for Republic Broadcasting, you'll get knowledge that is very esoteric in terms of what most Americans know most of the time. Knowledge about the details of what true precision marksmanship really is. And I want to encourage you to please consider participating in this while we can. It will be shut down here in just a couple of days. And will it be back? I don't know if the offer will be back or not. That remains to be seen. If you didn't hear the first hour yesterday, you might want to listen to that. My friend Steve Ben Noon and I talking. Steve and I have very similar backgrounds in terms of being involved in various investigative pursuits. Steve actually was in the CIA for 8 years. I looked into joining the CIA twice, once in 1969. The next time, I think it was about, I'm going to say about 1980 or so. 1979 is the next time I was looking at it. I was with, at the time in 1979, I was the intelligence NCO for my Special Forces A team that I was with in St. Louis in the 12th Special Forces Group. And I'd already talked to the recruiter and getting ready to begin that process. And I talked to my buddies in Special Forces, and they said, John, you really don't want to do this. These people have a reputation for eating their own. That means they will not stand up for their own people if and when the time would ever come. And I said, thank you. I believe I'll probably just pass on this opportunity. But Steve and I yesterday were talking about our concern about the future of this country, our concern about what could possibly happen in 13 months, soon to be 12 months. That would be following the November 2020 election. That's pretty close. It's in your face. It really is. The next 13 months will fly by. It will be so fast to make your head spin. Our enemies, the communists, socialists, Democrats, Muslims, they have a plan. The plan is so huge that, quite frankly, they can't speed it up. In my opinion, they can't speed it up. They maybe a week or two or a month, but not anything of any consequence. They know that their attempts to win at the ballot box are finished in terms of the presidential election and the U.S. Senate. They also know there's a high likelihood they may lose the House of Representatives again. What I said when we had that election in 2018, in November 2018, following the election, I said the Democrats will spend the next 2 years making complete fools of themselves. And of course, they have certainly done that, haven't they? Absolutely, they've done that. And they will continue to. They will continue to. I have some very good friends who have been lifelong Democrats. They are humiliated. They are embarrassed that the party that they grew up loving and being part of has been taken over by the socialists, communists, Muslims. I don't know what they're. Well, one of my friends who was a lifetime Democrat, he's become an independent, and we have an independent party in Missouri that he's very active in. Has gone to their state meetings, and he's very happy with being affiliated with the independent party in Missouri. And I say, good for him. Absolutely good for him. The President Trump, he's certainly aware of these matters. Of course he is. His attempt to reach out to the president of El Salvador, I think, is a good thing. El Salvador is north of Nicaragua. It would be a great place for Americans to have a very strong ally, possibly a strong American military presence there. U.S. Marines, U.S. Air Force, U.S. Army, Navy, and so forth. That would be a good thing. I would like to see that happen. I would like to see the president of El Salvador and the country of El Salvador become an ally of ours. That would certainly help mitigate what's coming. I'm not sure it would stop it, though. I believe our enemies have plans that can do workarounds if they lose El Salvador. It's only been a few months ago that the meeting took place in Chicago involving the heads of state from every country south of our border, including El Salvador, where they were basically deciding on how they'd split up the booty and finalize their invasion plans. Of course, the White House knows about this. If I know about it, here I am, a homicide detective out here in the middle of the forest, the national forest. If I know it, of course the president knows it. I'm sure he was briefed in detail. I do not personally know the details of what went on at that meeting in Chicago with those heads of state, but we have a pretty good idea because it's a short list of the possibilities. So the president will do everything he can within his power to counter what's coming at us. Will he be successful? I certainly hope and pray that he will. I've been through one war. I don't want to go through another. I certainly don't want to see my daughter and my grandchildren go through a war. I'm doing my best to provide a safe haven for them. Hopefully they would be able to get here. So I personally can't take the chance that the president will be successful. I have to make preparations to deal with him not being successful, at least not completely successful. The plans of our enemies have been in place and in motion for more than a century, well more than a century, to take down this country from being a Christian-based republic to being a socialist nirvana, so to speak, if there is such a thing. How about this? A boot in your face forever. That's more likely. That's what they want, our enemies. I'm determined, as far as I'm concerned, they won't be successful. I hope you are too, that you're doing what you can at the local level. And that's where all of you have some opportunity to do something at the local level. You have to understand how the world works, how it's put together. If you don't, your chances of being successful are highly unlikely. I'll give you a good example. One of my listeners, they decided that they would approach the city council of one of our cities around here to convince them of how wrong and how unhealthy it is to put sodium fluoride in drinking water. So my listener bought enough copies of a book that detailed all the scientific basis for why and how sodium fluoride is harmful to human beings, and showed up at a city council meeting to make a statement to the city council and the mayor, advising them of his findings and providing a free copy of this book to all the city council members and to the mayor. And of course, he failed. Of course he failed. That's not the way you do it. That is not the way you do it. Here's the way you do it. First of all, if the council members are elected representing a specific district as opposed to at large, and I've seen it both ways, if you have a city council member representing you in your district that you live in that city, you make an appointment to meet that city council person. Get to know them. Don't even bring up the topic of sodium fluoride. Just get to know them a little bit, find out who they are, what their their lifestyle, what they do for a living, what their political leanings are, and so forth. You meet with them maybe 2 or 3 times. By the third time, that's when you approach the topic of sodium fluoride. And you have your homework done. You need an elevator speech. What's an elevator speech? Well, that's your 60 seconds to make your point and get their interest. That's 60 seconds. Now, that may not sound like much, but the Gettysburg Address was only 3 minutes. So a lot can be said in 1 minute to get people's attention and hopefully pique their interest and look into it a little deeper to find out if there's anything factual to back up the statements that you've made. And of course there is. Of course there is. Now, the topic doesn't necessarily have to be sodium fluoride. It can be any number of things. It could be related to a school board, for example, and maybe reinstituting the Pledge of Allegiance back into the school. 10 seconds, by the way. 10 seconds. You'll hear the school boards and principals and school administrators. Oh, we don't want to take up the time. Excuse me, 10 seconds for something that has been part of our American heritage here for so many decades to help promote patriotism among our youngsters as they're growing up. So the same thing would apply to a school board member. If you have a topic you would like the school board to address and possibly change, you don't show up at a school board meeting and make your case. No, that's not how it's done. You meet with school board members one-on-one and make your case individually, one-on-one, outside these meetings of the school board itself. That's how it's done. That's how you achieve your goal. One-on-one in a restaurant over a cup of coffee. Now, why a restaurant? Because it's neutral territory. Not the home or the office of the school board member or yourself. And this applies to any kind of meeting of this nature, whether it's a city council person or a school board member. Neutral territory, typically a restaurant, where it's a relaxed atmosphere. They'll have coffee and tea and water and other whatever people like, and food. It's always good to have food before a conversation. People are more relaxed and more ready to have a civil conversation after they got a belly full of food. But it needs to be on neutral territory, not the office of the person you're talking to, not your office, not in somebody's home, unless it's a home of somebody who's not part of the conversation. That would not be easy. And that's how it's done. You approach these people one-on-one in a friendly manner, not confrontational. If it's confrontational, you're finished. You're done. You're done before it started if it's a confrontation. There's no point in even pursuing it. It has to be a friendly, open atmosphere where you're offering information. You're offering to educate and inform. You're offering to help these people, help their city, help their school district. Most of these people, most of the time, seek these offices so they can be helpful to their community. Here's our break. The call number is 800-313-9443.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
It's happening, ladies and gentlemen. We here at RBN are working with Front Sight Firearms Training Institute to bring our audience the best in combat, tactical, and defensive firearms training. Whether you're a private citizen who is new to firearms, or you have a concealed weapon permit and want a level of training that surpasses what you've received from your local gun range, Front Sight provides priceless education and skills taught by seasoned law enforcement, military, and private citizen instructors to levels that far exceed law enforcement and military standard. With nearly 1 million responsible citizens trained from every town, city, and state from across the United States, Front Sight has bolstered the Patriot movement to a whole new level. Contact Dan Sutterfield by phone at 573-762-2356 or 573-465-2356, or shoot him an email at domedan, DOMEDAN, at hotmail.com. This is a limited time opportunity. Don't miss it.
All right, terrible. September. We're going on a cruise. It will be fun. It will be fun. It will be informative. We'll all be together. I'll be there, of course. My buddy Leon Green will be there. It's looking more and more like Sam Andrews and his wife will be there. No confirmation yet. We hope to have that confirmation soon. We're leaving Port Canaveral in Florida on Saturday, the 9th day of February, returning a week later on the 16th. We'll be at sea starting at 4:30 in the afternoon on the 9th. All day the 10th we'll be at sea. Another day at sea on the 11th. We'll be at port in St. Martin the 12th. San Juan, Puerto Rico, the 13th. We'll be at sea on Valentine's Day, the 14th. And we'll be at Coco Cay. This is a private island owned by Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines on the 15th. Get back to Orlando the morning of the 16th. A luxury resort on the water. 20 restaurants. The ship has 20 restaurants. The Harmony of the Seas. Now, everybody going will get a copy of the book titled The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. The principles in this book have stood the test of time. The men and women who've been successful for thousands of years have understood and implemented these principles. So everybody get a copy of that book. Everybody who wants to will also get an all-inclusive lifetime commander membership to Frontsight, a $25,000 value. So we're making it as nice and as desirable as we can to participate in this cruise. If you want more information, you need to give our cruise director, Betsy Murphy, a call. If you don't have internet access, she will certainly mail you a nice full-color brochure. Betsy Murphy, our cruise director, here's her telephone, twice, slowly, 636-530-9502. I say again, 636-530-9502. We got a caller on hold here. Taking a break, feeding his goats. Good morning, Jerry.
Good morning, John. Yeah, the awareness of this fluoride is very important. I guess the majority of the people don't realize that they put fluoride in certain medications, Cipro for one. And they found that the fluoride will pass through the blood-brain barrier and make you more susceptible to aluminum and other elements and high poisons, if you will. It's some nasty stuff. But there's an article still on RBN, I guess, was here a month or so ago. No, I've got copies of it. But Dr. Wynn Parker also addressed an issue. Are you aware of what happens when you mix ammonia and bleach together?
Well, you're setting up a way to kill yourself with the poisonous gas, is what you're doing.
Right. Well, during the Clinton administration, through executive order or some nefarious way, he got the EPA to write up for all rural water districts and I guess municipalities start treating their water with chloramine.
That's right. They call it, when that's mixed together, they call it chloramine, right?
Right. And it's the same thing, just in low doses. I found out about it through the ag teacher here in the school district that I live in. He was had a little aquaponics system set up, and he said, all my fish keep dying. I said, well, you using city water? He said, yeah. I said, well, it's that chloramine. I said, can't you just let it set and let it gas off? He looked at me, he said, chloramine doesn't gas off. It's got to be filtered out.
That's right.
And so, and I got to looking back and thinking, of course, my memory is not all that good or long, but the number of people that have been afflicted with things like bladder problems, cancer, kidney problems, all sorts of stuff, and it seemed like it kind of ended up more cases since the 1980s when Clinton was involved in all this. So just for what it's worth, look at that, and when you combine that with fluoride, don't tell me what kind of poison.
Yeah, double whammy. Yeah, double whammy. Yeah.
Yeah. Triple.
Okay. Thanks for the call, Jerry. We got a break.
Thanks for taking my call.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
All right, we're back with Jeremy on Wednesday, 25th of September. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. I haven't mentioned this much lately, but there's a couple of things there that are very important. Under products, AMSOIL, for example. I learned as a young man in the working world that at least my involvement with automobiles was a big chunk of my income to keep these motor vehicles operating properly on the road safely. And a buddy of mine, he's a scientist. This would have been about 1979 or so. He told me about this relatively new product called AMSOIL, synthetic motor oil. And at the time, I had a little two-seater fiberglass sports car, a Saab Sonnet, and so I bought a gallon of it and changed out the oil in the filter, fired up the little four-cylinder engine, and I noticed the temperature gauge was 10 degrees lower, which instantly told me there's less friction in the engine. That's why the friction is what makes that temperature. And I've been using AMSOIL now for quite a while. My town car has AMSOIL in it. My motorcycle has AMSOIL in it. My little Saturn sedan has AMSOIL in it. I don't use anything but AMSOIL. It's the best. I always get the best when it comes to these motor vehicles. The best tires, the best motor oil, the best batteries, and so forth. My town car now has 385,000 miles on it. Still going strong. Thank you, AMSOIL. Right below that, it's Amazon products. If you click on there, I can't guarantee it, but I think there's a high likelihood you'll find things that you don't know even exist when it comes to field gear. Fascinating what's there. And of course, energy cleaner. To do what you want to do, you have to have strength, you have to have energy, you have to have health. The energy cleaner will help. If you've got arthritis pain, how many people do you know that have arthritis pain? Probably half the adults that you know have some form of arthritis pain. The energy cleaner will help. How many people do you know that aren't sleeping every night like they should? Maybe you don't. The energy cleaner will help. $285 shipping included. Study up on it. Do your homework. Read what we've got to read there. Read the testimonies from people like Steve Whitman. Then make your decision. I'm shipping out an energy cleaner and a twin-size pad this morning, by the way. Make your decision. Place your order. Keep in mind I offer a 90-day money-back guarantee. And, of course, I have a toll-free order line. That's 800-592-8255. 9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. We had open lines here at Republic Broadcasting. The call-in number is 800-313-9443. I keep emphasizing 13 months. Will something happen in 13 months? Possibly. I think I would say 50-50 at this point in time. The president may be successful in mitigating what our enemies want to do. It's possible. I hope so. So what do you do? Well, you make your own decision. I wouldn't pretend to tell you what to do. I can give you advice and then you make your own decision. You're all adults out there with free will. I respect that. I certainly don't want to be in a position of telling you what to do. I can give you advice. I can give you, pass along my knowledge of what I'm learning, just like Steve Ben-Noon can, just like Jeff Nyquist can when he comes up here and at the top of the hour. But then it's left up to you to make your decision what's best for you and your family. And that's the way it should be. So will something happen in 13 months? I think there's enough of a possibility of that I'm certainly making some changes in my preparations to make sure that I've got everything in place that I want in place. If our enemies, the socialist, communist, if the socialist, communist, Democrats, Muslims start pulling off civil disorder leading to civil war, leading to a Red Dawn invasion, then I'll be as ready as I can to protect myself and the people that I love. I hope you will do the same. I do truly hope that. There's a memorandum I wrote there right at the top of my homepage in bright red letters that says, please download and read immediately John Moore's memorandum on the possible coming Second American Civil War. There's a map there, red and blue. This shows the counties from 2016. There's more than 3,000 counties in the United States. The counties that voted for President Trump in red, the counties that voted for the wicked evil, the wicked witch of the West, Hillary, in blue. And that's very revealing. Very revealing. I see here in Missouri, it looks like maybe 3 counties that I can see here. Kansas City, Boone County, and St. Louis City and County. Most likely St. Louis City, not St. Louis County. I think St. Louis County is pretty conservative. And let's see if there's any states that are all red. Looks like Oklahoma is all red. It looks like, well, let's see. It looks like North Dakota has a little bit of blue in it. Looks like Wyoming is pretty red. And we got Idaho with some blue right in the middle there. I think that's where Boise is, and towards the south end of the state. Nevada's pretty red. We got some blue down there at the extreme bottom, the southern end of Nevada, and then along the western edge there, where it borders California up in the northwest corner of Nevada. Looks like we don't have very much blue in Tennessee or Kentucky. I don't see any blue in West Virginia at all. Good for them. So do your homework, do your research, come to your own conclusions, and get ready. This time, we don't have, I know what it takes to get prepared. I did my first paid professional consultation in these matters the summer of 1977. That's 42 years ago. 42 years ago, I did the first one. So I've been at this a long time. I have a better idea than most what it takes, and more importantly, how long it takes. What does it cost if people say, I don't have any money? Well, everybody's got some money. Even homeless people, they generally get a check from the government because of their psychiatric situation they find themselves in. So even with low, very small funds, you can still, for example, get 2-liter soda bottles, wash them out thoroughly, rinse them a good 3 times, and fill them with clean water. You can buy bags of beans and rice and get yourself a little vacuum packer from the big box store, Walmart or Target, and vacuum pack the food. I would do a double seal. I get about a 10% failure rate when I do these vacuum packs. So I usually do a double seal. I'll vacuum pack one bag and then put that inside another bag and vacuum pack it. That reduces the failure rate dramatically. And make sure you got basic camping supplies, a good quality cold weather sleeping bag, something that will keep you warm when it's 0 degrees out there. A little camp stove, a way to cook food, a good quality tent suitable for use in the wintertime. Lots of things you can get at various thrift stores. Salvation Army, Savers, Goodwill tends to be overpriced, is what I've seen a lot of. But thrift stores run by charity seem to be the best. Savers is a great place. You haven't been to Savers, it's a great place to find it. All kinds of clothing and various other items. You may find a sleeping bag there occasionally. And do what you can within your own means. Now, you don't necessarily need a $3,000 rifle. No, you can get by with something far less expensive. Far less expensive. A good centerfire bolt-action rifle for a couple $100. Why not? Your grandpa's 30-30 lever action. Sure, that'll you can defend your life with that. Of course you can. You can at least a stock of ammunition and build on it as you can. When you find ammunition on sale, pick some up. Pick up 2 or 3 boxes at a time, and next thing you know, you've got a nice little inventory of ammunition. Stock up on socks. I talk about merino wool socks a lot, and the calls and emails I get thanking me are just a lot of fun to help people in their daily life. Wearing socks is what most of us do most of the time, most days, all year long, and I got my merino wool socks on right now as we speak. You need a safe haven. Now, buying a hobby farm is something that some people can do and many can't. I understand that. Do some networking. Relatives, friends, people you go to church with, people you were in college with, people you were in the military with. Find out who's got a place in the country. It may or may not be a hobby farm, but you really need to be away from these urban, suburban areas. That's not optional. If there is civil war, that's going to be the battleground, will be the urban, suburban areas. And you really, unless you're some kind of alpha male warrior that really wants to get involved in the fight, and you have no children, no spouse, and that's what you want to do. Unless you're that kind of person, you really need to be away from these urban, suburban areas. You really do. At a safe haven, some distance from these densely populated areas. A hobby farm would be best, but any place away from these areas would be better than being in that area. So do what it takes to network and find a safe haven for yourself, a place where the occupants there know you, love you, are looking forward to you showing up, cold, hungry, wet, tired, because you got out just in the nick of time, had to walk most of the way with your backpack full of your supplies. Now, whatever it takes. I have to keep emphasizing time. Time is short. Time is almost non-existent. These 12, 13 months will fly by. I know I keep repeating myself, but I'm trying to make a point here. I'm diligently attempting to make a point that you need to wake up and smell the coffee. The coffee brewing on the in a coffee maker is what we've got coming at us. We've got very determined enemies that have deep resources. The entire resources of entire countries are behind us. The resources of Russia are behind us. The resources of China are behind us. The resources of George Soros are behind us. And they have a goal. That goal is to destroy the United States. Once the United States goes down, everything else falls in place for them to meet their goal. There can't be any opposition of any consequence once we go down. They know it. I know it. And now you know it. Their goal of world domination is something that they intend to fully implement. That's their goal. When Jeff Nyquist comes on board here in about 13, 14 minutes, we'll be talking about that in more detail, the International Communist Conspiracy. That's what we're looking at here. They've proven largely successful in convincing a large percentage of Americans that socialism is good, socialism is grand. Free stuff, free food, free housing, free education, including college. How good is that? We have a standard of living that has never existed anywhere on the planet for a population of the size we've got, ever. Most people on this planet will never sit on a flush toilet. I'm trying to get your attention here. That's how poor this planet is. Most people on this planet will never personally see a flush toilet. Will never live in a home that has hot and cold running water under 40 pounds pressure. Will never live in a home that has electricity 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. That's most of the people on this planet will be born, live their life, and die, never having done the things I just mentioned. Ever. Ever. Welfare recipients in this country, they live in homes that have heat, electricity 24 hours a day, air conditioning, cable TV, hot and cold running water under 40 pounds pressure. That's a level of luxury above and beyond what most of the people on this planet will ever be part of. And we regard them as poor. By our standards, they're poor. They're drawing welfare. Most welfare recipients in this country own an automobile. Most people on this planet will never sit in an automobile. Will never ride in an automobile. Ever. So let that sink in. The communists, socialists, Democrats, Muslims, they want all of us to be in that situation. They want us dead, quite frankly. That's what they want. If you read what the top communist Chinese general said to his own top generals and colonels, just scroll down there to where it says Chinese Defense Minister speech. And we got the American eagle on one side and the Chinese dragon on the other side with a big yellow star in the middle. They want us dead, pure and simple. That's the end game here. They want what we've got. What do we have? The richest agricultural real estate on the planet. Vast mineral wealth. Vast oil wealth. That's what they want. And they want the infrastructure to support it. The interstate highways, the railroads, the locks and dams that make the rivers navigable, the airports, and so forth. Here's our last break this hour. Stay tuned.
Public Broadcasting Network depends on listener support of our advertisers and of our sponsors. We'd like to especially thank all of you who have taken advantage of our fundraiser with FrontSight Bonus. Those who are now FrontSight members, please train as soon as possible for your sake and for that of our nation. And please consider sharing your training and what you've learned when you arrive home. Republic Broadcasting Network has to stop promoting this fundraiser on air and on the website in just a few days. Dr. Ignatius Piazza, president of FrontSight, made a gracious exception to his no media rule for us at Republic Broadcasting Network. Thank you, Dr. Piazza. And once you've been to FrontSight, feel free to call your favorite host and share your experience on the air. We can continue this fundraiser without media help, but it'll be totally up to the listeners to spread the information. Please call Dan Sutterfield in Missouri at 573-465-2356, 573-465-2356. That's 573-465-2356.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Darren Moore here on Wednesday, the 25th of September. Men like myself, Steve Ben-Noon, Jeff Nyquist, Dave Hodges, my friend Paul Martin, the Health Ranger, Steve Quayle. Many of us know each other, by the way. I started interviewing Steve Quayle on my St. Louis radio show back in, it would have been about 1996 or so. I've known Steve a long time. I've known Dave Hodges since he started on Republic Broadcasting 6 or 7 years ago. I visit with Paul Martin frequently in person when I'm going back and forth to Seattle. We all of us have different life experiences, but there's something in common that we all share. That's concern for all of you. Now, men who have experience in various areas, when we find ourselves agreeing on a topic, we share information privately, and then we talk about it publicly. We all have our private sources. Paul Martin has his, I have mine, Steve Quayle has his, Dave Hodges has his, Steve Ben-Noon has his, and we find our private sources who don't know each other giving us very similar details. That's when it's time to stand up and pay attention, because that's exactly what's happening. I'm working with officials in government who are getting information from private sources inside the government, reaching the same conclusions. We all agree that these things could happen. We all agree that it's time to get prepared. We also, I think most of us agree that these things may not happen. I don't speak for these other men, obviously. I speak for myself. It's a bit schizophrenic, quite frankly, to live what appears to be a normal life with employment, social obligations, church obligations, community obligations, family obligations, meeting all those obligations in what appears to be a more or less normal manner, while at the same time preparing for the end of the world as we know it. And we all have limited time, limited resources. All of us have, there's 180 hours in a week, or 168 hours in a week, 168 hours in a week, and 365 days a year. We all have the same amount of time. That's a given. We all have different financial resources. We work within the time we're given. We work within the financial resources we've got. That's what we do. And how good you are at it, well, that's up to you. How good you are at finding bargains, getting the training you need, finding that safe haven, that's certainly up to you to do those things. Not up to me, not up to anybody else. That's up to you. And I encourage you to get to that starting point where you recognize the reality of what myself and the other men I just mentioned are telling you. Okay, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Wednesday, the 25th of September. Prep tip of the day, I want to encourage all of you to inventory your first aid supplies. And you may think you've got what you need. Well, maybe you do, but get twice what you think you need. This brings to mind what we used to talk about in Special Forces when it came to our engineers on an A-team preparing to blow up a bridge or a hydroelectric dam. They said the following: calculate precisely the explosives you need to destroy the objective, and then double it. So when it comes to first aid supplies, calculate precisely what you need and then double it. That's your prepper tip of the day. We have patient waiting in the green room, my friend Jeff Nyquist. Jeff was a gentleman who began a quest more than 20 years ago to understand, comprehend, eventually become quite expert in understanding and comprehending and letting all of us know the true nature of the international comics conspiracy. Jeff's website is jrnyquist.com, and he has posted a new article, haven't you, Jeff? Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, I read your new article, and very well done, as always. And the one thing that it wasn't pointed out in any great detail was, what can us individuals do to mitigate the issues and the problems that you outlined there, sir?
Oh, gosh. Well, to be aware, first of all, the biggest problem is people don't really know what's going on. They don't understand who the enemy is. They don't understand the enemy's tactics, and they need to know. And I think when people do understand it, they'll be energized to do something, to vote the right way, first of all, to vote for the right people, and to reject the mainstream media and its propaganda. If the country wholesale rejects these people, they'll go out of business. They won't be able to spread lies.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. In addition, there's more than 3,000 counties in the United States. There's tens of thousands of school districts. People could run for the local school board. People could run for city council. People could run for city council. If they're qualified, they could run for county sheriff, for example. And then really make a difference at the local level, because that's where the action is. Jeff, we got a caller on hold here. We got Jeff in Massachusetts. Good morning, Jeff.
Hey, hi, John. How you doing? Long time no hear.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Ask Jeff Nyquist this if he's on the air, which is this. In my local area of Massachusetts, they caught a man named Alexis Saab. He was taking pictures of the Prudential Building, Faneuil Hall, and Fenway Park to destroy these places, to give this information over to Hezbollah, and this was 10 years ago, to transmit that information over to Hezbollah for a future attack on America. Now, Iran is a client state of Russia. If we go to war with Iran, would Russia and China get involved in this war, and would it be on American soil? Because I also have a friend of mine who told me about the fall of Angola and how all these communist powers just came in and basically decimated the country in brutal, graphic ways I will not get into on radio. But, John, if you and Jeff can answer that question, that would be brilliant, because surveying photographs and diagrams are the precursor of a terrorist attack. And what would happen if another building came down in America again? Thank you very much, and have a good one. Bye-bye.
Okay, Jeff, go ahead. Jump right in there.
Well, yeah, the enemies of the country who are all aligned in a kind of block. Russia, China, Iran, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Cuba, North Korea, Vietnam, and others. They do survey the country. I remember I interviewed Hugo Chavez's pilot and chief of air staff, years ago, and he told me, "Oh, Chavez is a communist. He wants to attack the United States. He wants to, attack the U.S. physically. He wants to attack it economically, and he wants to create a communist bloc in South America." And I was astonished when I heard this the first time, because I'd always suspected that was what Hugo Chavez was about, but I'd never actually heard anybody who knew him personally say it. And so yes, they want to attack us. They want to hurt us. They want to kill us. Years ago, I managed to get an interview when nobody knew who I was with a gun runner for the Cubans who ran guns across the Mexican border for the DGI, and he was a Mexican from Texas. And he
which
said
way? I'm not, give me some clarification. The guns were going from which country to which country, and who was the final recipient?
From Mexico. There were communist guns going from Mexico into the United States, into arms caches of some kind here. He was supplying, I think, inner city gangs with firearms, very advanced firearms from Cuba. And, I asked him, what did his Cuban friends think? And he said, "Oh, one morning you're going to wake up and they're going to be slaughtering you. These people here in this country," and he spoke with great disgust for Americans. He said, "You people are going to really get it one day. We're going to slaughter you." Is basically what he was saying. When I went to this meeting through a friend who had been involved in some kind of business arrangement with him on some other area, had figured out who he was, and I got the chance to meet him. He came to the meeting, and first thing he did is place a gun on the table. And it's like, well, I don't have a gun to put on the table. I probably should have brought one, but I didn't. What
was the purpose of this meeting?
This was 30 years ago. Well, I'd heard about him, and I suspected that he was connected to the communists. And I didn't know, but I suspected, because I had been doing research. I was working on my book, The Origins of the Fourth World War, and I wanted to talk to somebody like this and find out whether this was the plan. This was what they're planning to do. And he confirmed it. He said, I just let him talk. Of course, he was telling me about, Marx and communist love and all the rest of it, but how they love the people, the proletariat or whatever.
Love them to death. Love them to death.
He bought the whole thing, but he clearly, what his real animation was, he hated Americans. Well, white Americans he hated, but he hated Americans, and he wanted some kind of revenge. And this pleased him. Now, this was 30 years ago, and I was young, and I was working on this book, and I was piecing it all together. And it was part of my education, but it wasn't a very good feeling hearing this from this guy, and people have to know that we have enemies. They are looking at ways of hurting us, and I'm sure the buildings in Massachusetts there that the caller was talking about aren't the only ones that have been looked at for terrorist attack. Colonel Stanislav Lunev told me 20 years ago when I asked him, I said, how vulnerable is America? He said, this country is wide open to massive terrorist assault. And I don't think anything really has fundamentally changed in that regard. I don't see, security beefed up everywhere. I don't see the police with increased capabilities. I see the police with even more stressed problems today than they had, 20 years ago. And counterintelligence, well, we can see the state of counterintelligence in this country when their primary finger pointing is towards the president. I mean,
right.
That's ridiculous.
Right. Well, when at the federal level, they had to eliminate naming Islam as part of the terrorist threat from their instruction material and from their instruction itself. One of the things that General Mike Flynn pointed out in his book, if you're not allowed to even name your enemy, you're hopelessly lost. And that's where we are. I don't know if President Trump is changing those protocols at the FBI and other places that teach about how to counter the Islamic threat and terrorism, but that needs to happen. I don't know if it has or not. Do you have any idea, Jeff?
I have not heard that it's happened. I could ask my former FBI friends who were basically fired, under the Obama administration because they didn't want people who even were willing to say out loud that Islam is a problem, in terms of terrorism. The Obama administration just cashiered them. I mean, there was a kind of purge in our counterintelligence. And I've talked to those folks, and they're desperately trying to warn the country, warn police departments, warn the citizens, especially activists who are trying to do something in politically locally with their police and their mayors, because the level of Islamic infiltration and their facility for terrorism is terrifying.
It is. It is, and the communists, the Russians and Chinese, they intend to use the Muslims as the shock troops to make these initial assaults, knowing full well that the majority will be wiped out and killed. But apparently the Muslims don't mind, because when they die waging jihad, they're instantly in their version of heaven with 72 9-year-old virgins. Did you know that, Jeff? That's who the virgins are. They're 9 years old.
Oh, I didn't know they were 9-year-olds.
Well, it gets better. They're perpetually 9 years old. They never defecate. They never urinate. They can't get pregnant. And every time at the conclusion of having sex, they instantly convert back to being a virgin forever. But here's another fun aspect of this. When an adult Muslim woman dies waging jihad, what happens to her is she gets to be one of the 9-year-old virgins forever. That's her reward.
Oh no,
Jeff! They really believe this. They really believe this, and that's. It's almost beyond comprehension for us Westerners to understand that's what they believe, but that is their heartfelt belief that they really do believe to be their reality and their truth. I was searching for several years to find out just who these 72 virgins were, and I did finally determine that. Muhammad, his favorite wife, was 7 years old when he married her. And he did the right thing. He waited until she was the very mature 9 years old before he had sex with her, and that was his favorite wife of all the many wives that he had.
Yeah, that's pretty hard for us to wrap our heads around here.
It is. It is. Well, the only qualification for a female to get married in a Muslim world is that she be potty trained, basically, and then she's old enough to get married. So they'll be the shock troops. They'll be the cannon fodder. The Muslims will be the cannon fodder for the Russians and Chinese to throw themselves on the sharp sword of American police, American military, and armed, angry American citizens who will take care of business. That's what's going to end up with the Muslims. They'll be wiped out in the initial phases of this, almost to a man.
Yeah, it does seem that they have set up Islam as a. This is the thing that Colonel Lunev told me years ago, that the Islam was a kind of stalking horse for their attack on America. And you can read it. I think we've discussed Victor Suvorov's book, Spetsnaz, where he talks about Great Terror, how they use Muslims basically, or he doesn't specifically say Muslims, but they use mercenaries controlled by intermediaries that have no apparent connection to Moscow. And this is what we saw with Al Qaeda. I think it's why Alexander Litvinenko was killed, because he was a KGB FSB defector who came to Britain and warned us that Al Qaeda was a Russian controlled entity, that Ayman al-Zawahiri, the current head of al-Qaeda now, was a longtime KGB agent going back to the early 80s. And so it's hard for us to understand these long-term strategies and plots that these countries, these in Asia, and of course I think the Russians are considered Asiatic. Colonel Lunev told me, he said, Russia's not European, it's Asiatic.
Right.
They have inherited these strategies, these ideas about how to wage war, how to use spies. What a spy is. A spy for the Russians is not somebody who gathers information. He's someone that actually influences you to do the wrong thing, to guide you down the wrong path, which is what we've got here in this country with the Democratic Party. It's not only down the wrong path itself, it's trying to bring the whole country down the wrong path. And this business of impeaching the president, this is ridiculous.
Well, something I say frequently, the Russian leadership is Caucasian on one hand. On the other, they think like Asians. They may be Caucasian ethnically and racially, but they think like Asians. And it's difficult for Westerners to think like Asians. It's just not who we are we?
No, and speaking of Asia, the Hong Kong thing, it looks more and more, I'm told now, that there is increasing violence and it's attributed to the Hong Kong independence movement, because agents from the Chinese mainland have been going there and have been doing vandalism, damaging property, hurting people, or threatening people, and that the demand to do something will not be able to be met by the Hong Kong police, and so they're going to have to ask for help from guess who?
Hold that thought.
Chinese Communist mainland.
Hold that thought, Jeff. We got a break. Phone number is 800-313-9.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Wednesday, the 25th of September. We're going on a cruise. It will be fun. Jeff Nyquist will not be going with us. I'm going to encourage him to possibly do an appearance on a video conference if he's available. And, Jeff, I hope you will consider that. Leon Green will be with us. It will be a lot of fun. We're leaving Orlando the 9th of February. You got about 4 weeks to make your mind up and get signed up. The cutoff date will be the 1st of November to reserve a cabin for yourself and your significant other. Oh, yes, Valentine's Day will be right in the middle of the cruise. It will be a lot of fun. You need to call up Betsy Murphy to get details. She will mail you a full-color brochure if you need one, if you don't have internet access. Betsy Murphy, our cruise director, 636-530-9502. I say again, 636-530-9502. Visiting with Jeff Nyquist. Website's linked to my links page at thelibertyman.com. That website is jrnyquist.com. Jeff is doing a video appearance during our cruise, something you would consider doing, sir?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, we'll have an audience for you, and that would be a lot of fun. And we know I've talked privately about the fact you can't go with us, but there'll be other opportunities. This will be the first of a number of cruises, and R&R from dealing with the day-to-day things that people have to deal with. A beautiful Caribbean cruise, no hurricanes, a luxury hotel on the water with 20 restaurants. For you folks who are really looking forward to good food, that's going to be your opportunity. Well, Jeff, I read with great interest your essay that you just published, and you hit some very important points there. And I encourage people to go to your website, jrnyquist.com, and read that and educate themselves, and hopefully get some interest in moving forward and reading your books.
Yes, well, I think that we're living in very interesting times, and certainly it's going to impact your life. So you might as well know something about it. And I think, I've been studying this and trying to figure out ways to explain it to people and to, understand it in the big picture way, so that people can sort of see the architecture of what our enemies are doing. I think that's the way to actually explain it to people. And in this, it's J.R. Nyquist blog is my new site. So it's connected to my old site, jrnyquist.com.
Right.
But I want people to understand this architecture. I want to explain it, the architecture of immigration and feminism and multiculturalism, and how these things are tied together, and to attempt to destroy America, and how it makes sense, and how the communists are the ones behind it. That's maybe the hardest thing for people to understand. That is that at some point in your gut, you realize it's true. You know these people are real. You know they're coming after America. They hate America. And we're in their crosshairs. And once you understand it, really, in your bones, you understand it, then you are not going to be a dupe anymore to their propaganda, which is everywhere. They want us to believe half a dozen different things, that if we believe it, we'll be destroyed by our own belief in it. And that's what people don't quite understand, how subtle it is. But that once you have the keys to it, it's suddenly, everything becomes clear, so to speak.
Right. Well, we have to give credit where credit is due. The communists understand human nature at its most base level. They understand that people, by and large, will gravitate towards free stuff, free food, free housing, free public education, including college. And they understand that aspect of human nature. They embrace that, and they exploit that to their own advantage, don't they, sir?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they understand that we're human and we're tempted. And it's like anything, any dishonest approach is going to try to, appeal to your greed. And that's what they do. And that's how they win adherents. And, of course, they go after, it's very interesting. They have won over so many people in the intelligentsia, so many people of the literate class, people who consider themselves smarter than everybody else. And one of the things they've done is, well, if you follow Trump, you're dumb. If you voted for Trump, you're stupid. And that's one of the other things. It's sort of like, oh, gee, I don't want to be stupid. I don't, they've got that pressure on people. The way they try to socially pressure people is amazing to watch. And and I don't think we should participate in that at all. I mean, that's one of the things I mentioned Claire Berlinski. She's the person I respect tremendously, but she thinks she loathes the president because she says the president is illiterate. Well, that's a very funny thing.
Well, the President of the United States is not illiterate. He is not a voracious reader like you and I. On one hand, on the other, he doesn't need to be to do what he's doing. President Trump understands people. President Trump understands the Constitution of the United States. President Trump understands that we have enemies that want to destroy our country, and he understands what he needs to do to stop it. And no one man can know everything. That's not possible. And we got a break. We'll be right back.
Fundraiser for Republic Broadcasting involving the energy cleaner. Mail me a postcard. My address is at my website at thelibertyman.com. We pick a postcard every other Thursday. When your postcard is drawn out, you get to buy an energy cleaner for $215 instead of $285, $70 discount. $200 goes to Republic Broadcasting. You also get a 10% discount on my mattress pads. So get those postcards in, put your name, your telephone number, your email address on there, and when your postcard is drawn, you get to get an energy cleaner for $215 instead of $285. Mattress pads, 10% off. Help us out at Republic Broadcasting and help yourself to get an energy cleaner at a deep discount. It's a win-win situation for everybody. We hope you can get these postcards in soon. Thank you very much.
It's happening, ladies and gentlemen. We here at RBN are working with Front Sight Firearms Training Institute to bring our audience the best in combat, tactical, and defensive firearms training. Whether you're a private citizen who is new to firearms, or you have a concealed weapon permit and want a level of training that surpasses what you've received from your local gun range, Front Sight provides priceless education and skills taught by seasoned law enforcement, military, and private citizen instructors to levels that far exceed law enforcement and military standard. With nearly 1 million responsible citizens trained from every town, city, and state from across the United States, Front Sight has bolstered the Patriot movement to a whole new level. Contact Dan Sutterfield by phone at 573-762-2356 or 573-465-2356 or shoot him an email at domedan, DOMEDAN, at hotmail.com. This is a limited time opportunity. Don't miss it.
All right, we're back. Let's jump in. J.R. Moore here on Wednesday, the 25th of September. If you want to get some gold and silver into your inventory, just go to my website, thelibertyman.com, and near the top you'll see a red box with a gold ribbon on it. Looks like a Christmas gift. Click on that. That's the landing page for my friend Steve Hunt, Swiss America. Contact Steve. Steve will help you understand how and the proper way to invest in gold and silver. Steve has a telephone number. If you don't have internet access, you can give Steve a call at 800-630-1491. I say again, 800-630-1491. If you want to get through the coming times, you're going to need health, you're going to need energy, you're going to need to have the strength to do that. That's where the energy cleaner comes in. I know you're thinking about it, you're pondering it, you wake up with aches and pains after not having a great night's sleep because you have arthritis, you're not sleeping well. Well, at some point you'll be tired of being tired. At that point, that's when you'll call my toll-free R line. That's when you'll get yourself an energy cleaner, a mattress pad that goes on your bed, twin, size full, queen, king, California king. And that's when you start getting your life back. That's your choice. That's your choice. The energy cleaners for sale at my website, the mattress pads that go with it. You can use PayPal, MasterCard, Visa. Keep in mind, I offer, from me to you personally, a 90-day money-back guarantee. It's highly unlikely your healthcare professional will offer you a money-back guarantee on anything he or she offers you, but I do. I also have a toll-free R line 24 hours a day. Order line only. Don't try to call me. 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Visiting with Jeff Nyquist. His website's jrnyquist.com. He also has a jrnyquist.blog website. That's his new website that he's had going now for a couple of months. And we will take your questions and comments here at Republic Broadcasting at 800-313-9790. 9443. I was watching a clip, Jeff, interview done during the Eagle Forum conference in St. Louis a couple of weeks ago, interviewing a gentleman who wrote a book about literacy in America and how our school system, our public education system, was intentionally changed beginning about a century ago to make sure that most American adults most of the time were either illiterate or semi-literate. That's a big part of what we're dealing with, isn't it, sir?
Oh, yes, it definitely is. They don't want us to think for ourselves. It's very interesting that it is true that if you can't read, you're cut off from the world of wisdom of our forefathers and the people who've written very thoughtful books over the last 2,500 years, going back to Plato and Aristotle and Thucydides. If you're cut off from that wisdom, which is the wisdom that the Founding Fathers used to make the Constitution, then you aren't as good a citizen. And they don't want us to be citizens. They want us to be chattels, because socialism is a chattel system. It reduces, it infantilizes people. It makes them dependent on the state. And that is part of their game, as you were describing earlier about all their promises to give you goodies, and these promises are very sinister, because what they're going to give you is they're going to take away your liberty. That's what they're going to do.
Well, I recall it's been 35 years ago. My kid brother, his children were still small children at the time. They're now adults in their mid-30s, but he thought that the federal government providing daycare for his children would just be the neatest thing since sliced bread. And I pointed out that, that's done in communist China because the government wants to indoctrinate the children, and that's why we don't want to do it here, because when you have a federal government instituting these kinds of programs, you will get the policies of that federal government inside the brains of your small children, won't you?
Yeah, that's exactly what you get, because children, if you are infantilized, you're being told, oh, we're going to give you this, but now you have to think this way. Now you have to do everything this way. And suddenly your freedom is suddenly gone. And you wondered, well, how did this happen? How did we get here? And this is how we get here. And, of course, disintegrating the family to make people more dependent on this. In order for people to raise children, healthy children, and to be themselves independent and healthy, they need to be in families. And the family sticks together. The family does for itself. But the state breaks up the family, and now what? The mom is on her own, and she has to go to who? The state. You see, it's all part of the same game that they've been playing. And they've been using all these themes to do the same thing with immigration. They don't teach you anymore in school that, a country is a nation. And a nation has specific qualities, which shared history, shared language, shared culture, and that if you suddenly bring in people with a different culture, different language, different history, you're setting the country up for being culturally divided within itself, and then to destroy American culture by saying, oh, no, we're not Americans, we don't have an American culture, we have a multiculture. It's all multiculture now, you see, and then suddenly you've taken everything away. You've taken away the heritage of the people. You take away the family, you take away their heritage. It's like the John Lennon song. What if there were no people? What if there were no countries? What if there was no belief in God? Then the world would be as one. You see, that's sort of the communist idea. And, of course, it's a lie. The world won't be as one. The world will be the biggest bloodbath they could imagine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The Japanese seem to understand that. They don't allow any Muslims to become citizens in Japan. They simply don't allow it. And they recognize the dangers, the inherent dangers of bringing in people who have a heritage, a culture, a belief system that is diametrically opposed to their heritage and their culture and their values. And that's a smart thing to do. Islam is not a religion. It's a complete, comprehensive way of life, including what you wear, what you eat, what you believe, what you think is a good form of government, and Islam does not embrace republics in the form that we have a republic, a constitutional republic. They embrace theocracy. That's what they want. They want theocracy. They want to be told what to do by the learned imams who they respect and they venerate. They don't embrace, they don't seek out independent thought, independent governance, even at the local level like we do. That's simply not who they are they, Jeff?
No, it is a political religion. It isn't, Christ said, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. That is not in their religion. They don't separate. There's no separation of church and state. There's no separation of politics and government. Religion and government. And of course, that's why the Constitution is something that they cannot abide. Muhammad would say, oh no, we can't have a constitution like this. We can't have the Constitution of the United States because it doesn't recognize Sharia and Muhammad as the author of all law.
Well, actually, the U.S. Constitution was designed in the First Amendment to preserve the individual states to have state religions and prevent the federal government from having a federally mandated religion. State religions were the norm and accepted, and the way things were when that Constitution was written, that each state, if they chose to, could have a state-based religion. And that's been lost somehow to mean that religion can't be part of government, which, in fact, it was the foundational part of state governments. And the purpose of the First Amendment was to preserve the rights, the inherent rights of individual states to have state religions and have a test that if you wanted a employment in a state, you had to be a member of that religion. In Rhode Island, you had to be a Baptist if you wanted to be employed by the state government. That's the true purpose of the First Amendment, Jeff.
Yeah, well, in the West, we had two different kinds of law going back into the Middle Ages. We had canon law and we had secular law, the king's law, or common law. And of course, that carried on into the U.S. Yeah, that's what you're saying is true. Yeah, the states were allowed to recognize religious belief. And if you didn't like it, you moved to another state.
That's right.
Because you had options.
What religion do you think the land of Mary may have had? Maryland. What religion might that have been?
Oh, Catholic. They were Catholic.
Really? The land of Mary was Catholic? I'm shocked.
They were Catholic. No, that's very famous. Yeah.
Maryland,
but of course, they don't teach that in school anymore, do they?
No, of course not. Of course not. I have a relative by marriage who he's a graduate of a respected brick and mortar university. He did well, got a good grade point average. He thinks that the Civil War in the United States was about slavery. So I had to educate him. I said, look, how is that possible when men and women, boys and girls, were bought and sold inside the United States of America all during this quote-unquote Civil War? So we easily and more likely did, the United States of America drafted American citizens who were slave owners to fight against citizens of the Confederate States of America who never owned slaves and never would own slaves. That's actually did happen. That's the way it was, wasn't it, Jeff?
Well, I remember Vice President Stevens' speech, the Cornerstone speech, in which he said that the South was fighting for slavery. So there's a little bit of opinion there from the leaders of the Confederacy. There was a Confederate general. Now I'm forgetting his name. He was of Irish extraction. He wanted to end slavery. He wanted to beat the Union at it, but he was called on the carpet, and he even accused in some quarters of treason for suggesting that. So I think the story there is a little bit more complicated. I would have to respectfully.
Let's just talk about that a bit. We got Missouri, Kentucky, Maryland, and Delaware. All never left the United States of America. All were part of the United States of America fighting in this war, all of which men, women, boys, and girls were bought and sold in slavery, all during the Civil War. That's historical fact. That's legal fact. So on the face of it, one country did not invade and attack another country to end slavery, when in fact both countries had legal slavery all during the Civil War. If the war was in fact legally about slavery, then clearly one of those countries would have ended slavery, but neither one did during the Civil War. It was a factor. Of course, slavery was a factor, but neither country ended slavery before, during, or even after the Civil War, because in the United States of America, slavery was still legal in states after the war was over, for quite a while, actually. So, of course, there was involvement of slavery as an issue, but it was not the issue, which is what's taught in the public schools.
Well, Lincoln, of course, his main thing was he didn't seek, when he was running, he didn't seek to end slavery. He just sought to prevent slavery from spreading to the territories, that he believed that slavery should be restricted to the existing states. And I think that angered a lot of people in the South, or some people in the South. And the reason that some slave states didn't go with the Confederacy is because if you look at Maryland and you look at Kentucky, they were on the border, and they would have been invaded more immediately. They were in greater danger, and I suspect that they had the prudence to stay out because they couldn't really defend themselves. Maryland wasn't defensible from the north. Kentucky really wasn't defensible. And so that's the way I kind of heard it told.
There was these logistical and tactical things and strategic things, of course, are true. I don't want to dwell on that too much longer right now. Let's get back to the main topic, which is not what happened a century and a half ago, but what we're looking at right now.
We don't want to refight the Civil War.
No, sir.
That's what our enemies want us to do.
Well, they do, but we need to understand our heritage, and understanding our heritage, understanding our history, having art that looks like art, having music that is not discordant, having entertainment that is not humiliating and embarrassing. One of my favorite TV shows, I just had to turn it off, Designated Survivor. They've gone completely down the politically correct rabbit hole, and I just had to turn it off. I couldn't watch it anymore with what they're doing there. So I shut it down, and that's what we do in a free society. If we don't like what's going on, we can turn it off and go to something else. But having people educated to understand what these threats are, how they're being so subtle, how they're willing to wait decades to achieve their goals, and how we need to counter this at the local level, at the school board level, at the county commission level, at the city council level. All these things will help if we can get people active locally at the city council level, at the school board level, and so forth. Get elected state rep, state senator, elected Constitution-believing sheriffs. We need to act locally, don't we, Jeff?
Yeah, we do. And I wanted to get back to about China and Hong Kong. I had mentioned it before one of the breaks. It looks as though Chinese agents posing as protesters are committing acts in Hong Kong, which will then justify a call for help from the Hong Kong government to mainland China, so that they can bring the People's Armed Police in, and they can basically just grab Hong Kong. And I'm very glad to see that President Trump warned China against this, that there would be consequences if they did this, because this is, Hong Kong is this pearl of the East, where there is this economic freedom in Hong Kong, which is what makes it such an amazing testament to capitalism. And if the Chinese communists come in and crush it, they're going to arrest and probably execute and torture thousands of people, maybe tens of thousands of people. And so it would be quite a horrible event for mankind if this happened.
If Hong Kong,
what we're looking at.
If Hong Kong was a separate freestanding nation, where would it be in terms of GNP as a separate country among the list of nations? Would it be in the top 10? Certainly the top 20, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think it would be in the top 20. I'm not sure top 10, but it's amazing. Its economy is huge for just being basically a city that is by itself.
It's
productivity.
How many square miles? 100 square miles? 200 square miles? Hong Kong.
Something like it's not all that big, and it's pretty crowded. It's sort of what New York is, what Manhattan is to the East Coast. It is to the Far East. It's only I think it's even bigger in some respects because the Far East is a very important region. The Western Pacific is a center of trade for all these nations like Japan and Singapore and China and Korea, the Philippines, and so everything sort of economically centers on it. It's the economic capital of the Far East.
428 square miles. 428 square miles. That's a fraction of the size of the county that I live in. A tiny fraction of the size of the county I live in.
And it has a merchant marine. It has, I think, the third or fourth largest merchant marine in the world.
Really.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Massive. It's incredible. And of course, China. Britain was basically threatened. Back in the 1990s when the British gave up their control of Hong Kong. And of course, Britain being from the time of the British Empire, this was their Far Eastern outpost. And I think it was 1997 that formally it became part of China again. But it was under condition that its independence, and especially its economic independence, was respected. And it has a unique form of government, a unique form of economy, which is a testament to capitalism's productivity, to economic freedom. And if this comes to an end, it will be a tragedy, not just for Hong Kong, but for the entire world.
Well, a place like Hong Kong serves to embarrass and humiliate the Chinese Communist government because of the thriving economy that these people have just off the coast on their own little island, showing the disparity between freedom and liberty and capitalism working the way capitalism should work, and what a command-controlled economy under the communists does. Which, if communist China was operated the same way Hong Kong did, it would be just phenomenal in terms of productivity and GNP and all the rest of it. And it does serve to humiliate the rest of the Chinese communists, what these people accomplish with such a small amount of landmass and such a small amount of people by comparison.
Well, if you it's interesting. You have the energy and the industry of the people of China combined with the economic ideals of economic freedom of Great Britain, of its imperial period. And so what you have combined there is something that is of East and West that is quite excellent. And it is an excellence that, indeed, if China adopted it, the Chinese people would be the most outstanding economic and scientific country in the world, whereas people brag about them now. But the fact is that the per capita productivity and the per capita wealth of China is not very great. China is still a poor country, the People's Republic, and it is mainly because of socialism. I know they're overpopulated, but let's face it, Japan is also overpopulated. But look, they're the number 2 economy in the world. I really don't believe China is the number 2 or number 1 economy. I think that, like Miles Kwok has said, that China China economy fake is what Miles Kwok says. He says the Bank of China is not a real bank. That is, it's because of communism. China is a gigantic communist state where capitalism is kind of a false front in China. Indeed, they have capitalism in business, but it is used by the communists to damage the West, to attack the West economically. And now under President Trump, we're fighting back. And that's the thing that's interesting. And by these developments that we're seeing, it's clear that this trade war is going to continue, that there aren't going to, the talks are not going in the right direction, and that this is going to go on. And China's not going to win. China is not going to win this war, this trade war. The United States is going to win it, because freedom and the cause of freedom is always going to win, unless, of course, they elect a Democrat next year, in which case we'll capitulate, even though we could win, and China will prevail that way.
Any prognostications on who the Democratic candidate's going to be? I won't hold you to it.
Wow, that's so in the air. I mean, this stuff about Biden and Ukraine is, I heard Devin Nunes say the other day that Biden is going to have to drop out of the race because the scandal is of such huge proportions. I guess we'll see. The mainstream media seems to be putting the scandal on the president. They seem to be, whenever they do something wrong, the president's at fault, and somehow they twist it around and make it about him. It's an amazing thing that the media can do. But the reality is that Biden is going to be damaged by this. And Elizabeth Warren seems to be the one, the heir apparent, if Biden goes by the wayside, amazingly. I guess Warren seems credible to the Democrats. She doesn't rate as credible to me, so I have a hard time believing she can really be the one. But I think if Elizabeth Warren runs against the president, it'll be interesting to see. She's a different personality than Hillary Clinton. And so it's how the one-on-one is handled. I'm trying to imagine it, but I can't imagine that President Trump will not destroy her, demolish her in a debate, because her ideas are really out there. She's really far to the left.
Absolutely. Well, sir, we are out of time. Thank you, Jeff. Have you back next week.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, that's it for the day. Get medical supplies, energy cleaner, essential oils. Now, like the annual edition. Never ever get the guns. Please do a fun, safe